Saint Catherine of Siena was born on March 25, 1347. She was an extremely loving and caring person who was always devoted to God. She was one of 26 children in her immediate family, but only half survived. Although her family suffered a horrible tragedy, she was able to stay happy and keep the people around her feeling the same way. Because of her constant positivity and volunteer work to all the people around the world, she was awarded the patron of Italy. We celebrate her brilliancy and hard work on April 39th, her feast day. St. Catherine of Siena suffered a paralytic stroke and died 8 long days after. She is the patron against fire, illness, the United States, Italy, miscarriages, people ridiculed for their faith, sexual temptation, and nurses. April 29, 1380, her death date, will always be a day to remember her beautiful, loving things she did for thousands of people throughout her lifetime. St. Catherine of Siena spent all of her life serving God and other people. She began to travel, calling for a reform of the church and for people to confess and to love God totally. She was constantly telling people how amazing God and the church are. She became involved in politics and was keen working to keep city-states loyal to the Pope. She was also credited with helping to start a crusade to the Holy Land. Her sister's husband died and she was told to marry him. When she was 16 years old, Catherine greatly upset her parents' plans for her to marry her sister's widow by cutting off her hair and staging a massive fast. When she was 21, she had a vision that she was told to enter public life to help the poor and the sick. She immediately went into public to help the people in need. She described this experience she referred to as her mystical marriage to Christ. St. Catherine also had a very powerful devotion to the heart of Jesus, the wound in his side. St. Catherine of Siena wrote many things. She wrote 380 letters, 26 prayers, and 4 treatises. All these writings were put into one major book known as the Dialogue. The record of her ecstatic experiences in the Dialogue illustrates her doctrine of the inner cell of the knowledge of God and of self into which she withdrew. Her works were extremely popular in her time. Catherine's letters are considered one of the great works of early Tuscan literature. St. Catherine's prayers were written mostly in the last year and a half of her life. St. Catherine of Siena was willing to die to prove her love and devotion for God. Her cause of death was a paralytic stroke, but it was caused by the many years of extreme fasting she did. As mentioned earlier, she fasted when her parents tried to make her marry her sister's widow. St. Catherine locked herself in a small room and prayed, cut her hair, and barely ate for a very long time. St. Catherine would travel to many different places to help many types of people. During the time of the Great Plague in Europe, she would travel to homes and hospitals and care for people that did not have a family or people to take care of them. Often she would wash their hideous wounds and bandage them. When they died, St. Catherine would bury them with her own hands. St. Catherine would do anything and everything to help anyone, especially the less fortunate. St. Catherine of Siena died on April 29, 1380. She was buried in the cemetery of Santa Maria. She stayed at this location for years, but after miracles were reported to take place at her grave, Raymond moved her inside the Basilica of Santa Maria sopra Minerva. She continues to peacefully rest in this place, well, at least her body does. Her head was parted from her body and inserted in a gilt a bust of bronze. Her head was said to have been taken by the people of Siena. They wanted to have her body, but realized they could not take the whole thing. They placed her head into a bag, but were stopped by Roman guards. They were nervous since they had the head of St. Catherine of Siena in the bag, but when the guards opened the bag, it was just rose petals. When they returned back to Siena, they opened the bag, expecting it to be rose petals, but it was her head once again. This is a very interesting story. St. Catherine of Siena even performed miracles when she was no longer alive. May Nature is Fire by St. Catherine of Siena. In your nature, eternal Godhead, I shall come to know my name, and what is my nature? Boundless love. It is fire, because you are nothing but a fire of love, and you have given humankind to share in this nature, for by the fire of love you created us. And so with all other people and every other created thing, you made them out of love. O ungrateful people, what nature has your God given you? His very own nature. Are you not ashamed to cut yourself off from such a noble thing, through the guilt of deadly sin? O eternal Trinity, my sweet love, you light, give us light. You wisdom, give us wisdom. You supreme strength, strengthen us. Today, eternal God, let our cloud be dissipated, so that we may perfectly know and follow your truth in truth, with a free and simple heart. God, come to our assistance. Lord, make haste to help us. Amen. God created us in his image and likeness. It is through him that we are able to know ourselves. His love for us is like a fire. It is so strong and always burning. We are able to participate in this love through our nature that God has bestowed in us. The greatest gift God could have given us is a nature like his. We pray to the Trinity, asking for clarity in the light of God, wisdom, and strength. We also ask for God's grace so that we may know him perfectly and understand his truths. The closing sentence asks God to come to our assistance in all things and to help us quickly. St. Catherine of Siena was a hard-working, helpful, and determined saint. She was always positive in spreading love and peace throughout the world. She volunteered lots of her time and love to both God and the people around her. St. Catherine traveled all around the world, spreading her beliefs to hundreds of people. Her kindness helped many poor people, but also helped many wealthy people to realize how easy it is to help the less fortunate.